Hi, I'm Mike Bellevue, and I'm out here at Duelist Den, and today I've got my Richards Mason style 1851 Navy cartridge conversion revolver. Now, this is a copy of the Colt Richards Mason conversion of the Navy revolver. This happens to be a custom gun. It was made by Kenny Howells of Howells Old West Conversions, but this was made quite a while ago, back in the mid-1990s, probably around 1997, before the Italian replicas were available. And back then, you had to go to a guy like Kenny Howell or Bob Millington and get a custom gun made if you wanted a cartridge conversion. And then the Italians came out with theirs, and they basically killed the custom gun market, because if you could get a ready-made conversion for $500 or $600, why spend $300 buying a base cap and ball revolver and then spend another $1,000 getting it converted? So they pretty much went away. And Cimarron sells the Uberti conversions. They're very nice, but I have two custom-made conversions, and I'm quite happy with them. So that's what we're going to be shooting today. Well, the genesis of the Colt 1851 Navy cartridge conversion revolver was, as you might guess, Colt's 1851 .36 caliber cap and ball revolver, which was, used in the 1850s and throughout the Civil War, one of the most popular guns of the Civil War. But after the war, Colt found itself in a pretty unenviable position. The government canceled all of its handgun contracts because it didn't need any more, leaving Colt with a great number of parts for the 1851 Navy revolver, and really nowhere to market them, because the market for cap and ball revolvers was pretty much dead. In fact, Colt's biggest competitor was Colt, because so many surplus Civil War guns were on the market that it was hard to sell a new gun. And of course, cartridge revolvers were looming in the wings. The Rollin White patent was holding other companies from making cartridge revolvers, but that was due to expire, and when it did, everybody was going to be jumping into the game. Now, a lot of people think that Colt probably made these cartridge conversion revolvers while essentially waiting for the chance to develop and sell the 1873 Army revolver, but that's not true. Cartridge conversions like this one of the Navy revolver were actually made in the mid to late 1870s. 5 years after, in some cases, 5 or 6 years after the 1873 single action Army and 45 Colt was already being produced, because Colt had these parts and they had a market for them. The single action Army was a great gun, but it was not widely available in the civilian market until 1878. And even then, if you wanted a lighter weapon, the Navy conversion in .38 long Colt was a great choice. So Colt made these in the late 1870s, and they were pretty successful. Well, Evil Roy's back, and he's looking for trouble. I think it's time for me to whack him with the Richards Mason conversion. All right, let's talk a little bit about ammunition. When these were developed, they were based on the cap and ball revolvers. And during the Civil War particularly, paper cartridges, skin cartridges, which is what these are, made out of intestine, foil cartridges, they became the way to go. So when they converted these guns, they basically took the cap and ball revolver as is and bored out the chambers so it would take a cartridge end to end. They put a conversion ring on it, and they were good to go. So these things had 375 bores. unlike the 357-inch bores that we have on modern guns. So this is what the cap and ball cartridges look like, and they used a bullet that looked like this. This is a Colt style bullet, and I don't know if you can see it that well, but it has this long rebated base called a heel base, and that's what was glued in to the paper or the skin on these cartridges. Well, when they made up the metallic cartridges, they essentially did the same thing. They took one of these bullets, and instead of a skin or a paper cartridge, they fitted it to a brass cartridge. And the earliest ones for these conversions are now called the Colt Short Colt. And I'm going to show you the difference. This is a long Colt right here, and this is a short Colt, and they're about 1/10 of an inch difference. And just for the heck of it, I'll pull out a 38 Special. So here's a 38 Special case, and here's a long Colt case. So you can see the long Colt case is about 1/10 of an inch shorter than the 38 Special case, and then the short Colt case is even shorter. And that heel-based bullet was the same diameter, outside diameter, as the brass cartridge, and that was big enough to fit the bore, and that's the way they were all made. Now, Colt eventually wised up, and they went to an inside lubricated bullet. But the problem was that there were still a lot of guns out there with a 375 bore. So this bullet actually has a hollow base, so it could be shot in either a 357-inch bore or in a 375-inch bore. The skirt would flare out and still grab the rifling. Now, this is on a long Colt, but you're going to see the reason they could lengthen the case is because so much more of the bullet was inside of it. So these actually have the same overall length, the short Colt and the long Colt. The difference is there's more of the bullet sticking out on the short Colt version and more of it inside on the long Colt. So they actually load with the same amount of powder, and they have the same overall length. I'm probably one of the few guys in the country that can actually load heel-based 38 short Colts, because about 25 years ago I had a special custom die set made up so I could make that ammo, because this conversion was converted by a guy who did it the original way, unsleeved bore, the whole bit. I had, and he's a guy who was not very famous, but he did a good job. And then Kenny Howells, who's still in business with Howells Old West conversions, and used to be the R&D gun shop, he made this one for me, which is museum quality, and Kenny sleeved the bore. So this would fire 357 type cartridges. And in fact, it's able to accept 38 Special cases, full-sized ones. So this would take a 158 grain 38 Special bullet. But after a while, I got sick of loading this stuff, and let me tell you, it is not easy. So I had Kenny rebuild this gun using his current cylinder configuration and to sleeve the bore. Now, these guns, these new Howells conversions, it's the same thing with their drop-in cylinders for the Colt Navy. They are nominally rated for a 38 long Colt. And it's true that a full-size 38 Special will stick out too far and it'll bump up against the barrel and you lock up the whole gun. However, what I found is if you go to 125 grain bullets, you can load 38 Special cases. So this is a 128 grain snakebite bullet, and it works just fine in all of these conversions. I'm going to use the Colt Richards Mason cartridge conversion to clean up the town at Swing City. So let's see if it's equal to the task.